Okay, wonderful. So hello everyone. Tash and I are presenting today. We're here to present a study titled Implementation of PrEP in an Australian Context with Young Adults with Complex Disability. We have completed this project as part of our honours degree in Bachelor of Occupational Therapy. And it's our pleasure to represent our wonderful team who are listed on the slide. Before we begin though, we'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay our respect to the elders past and present. We extend our respect to the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander colleagues and guests who are present today.
So just a brief overview of our presentation. Today we will be going through what PrEP actually is in itself. We will then go on to a bit of a description about our research and then how this links to CP Achieve, and then we will open up for some discussion and question time at the end.
The overall purpose of PrEP is to improve the participation of people with disabilities by addressing environmental barriers. So this isn't barriers just in the physical environment, but also in the social, attitudinal, familial, and institutional environments. So participants develop solutions to address these environmental barriers, and they build a participation team. The participation team is a group of people who can support them to achieve their PrEP goal. PrEP has been designed for people of all ages and to be used in different settings.
So there are 5 stages of PrEP. 1, to make goals. 2, mapping out a plan. 3, making it happen. 4, measure the process and outcomes. And 5, moving forward. So the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, or COPM for short, is used to identify 3 participation goals, which are addressed during intervention for PrEP. So PrEP occurs over a 20-week timeline. So we have a 4-week baseline phase at the start. Then we have our 12 weeks of intervention. So with each of the 3 chosen goals worked on over 4 weeks. And then we have a 4-week follow-up phase after this.
So the aim of our study was to evaluate the effectiveness and feasibility of implementing PrEP with young adults with complex disability in an Australian context. Sorry, Tash, I jumped in.
It's all right. So the concept of effectiveness in regards to if the intervention works. So for PrEP to be effective, it means that the people who are participating in PrEP need to have improved their participation in their chosen goals. Feasibility is about, will it work? So will the people who are involved in the implementing PrEP think it is acceptable and appropriate? And do people have the time and resources to do PrEP? And for this study, we have defined young adults as being aged 18 to 30 years and complex disability as people with child onset developmental disability. So for example, cerebral palsy, where complex medical and physical support needs are present.
A number of the researchers on our team were stakeholders or consumers. Stakeholders and consumers can be defined as an individual or group of people who are affected by the research and have lived experience that is relevant. In our research team, we had young adults who were living with disability. They were called consumer investigators and research advisory partners. We also had a clinician who works in Australia with young adults who have complex disability, and we also worked with the developer of PrEP. You can see all of the lovely pictures on the slide of these people. These stakeholders and consumers were really important members of our team because they shared their lived experience, and this helped to ground our research. Together, we identified some adaptations that were required for PrEP to be suitable for Australia and for young adults. The adaptations that we made together have been developed into a supplement, which is called PrEP-YA supplement, PrEP for young adults.
So participants were recruited through the Young Adult Complex Disability Service, and we had 3 different sample groups. So these included young adults who participated in the PrEP-YA supplement, clinicians who actually implemented PrEP with these young adults, and also the support people who helped these young adults do PrEP. So this study proceeded in 2 stages. So for stage 1 of the research, this took place in 2020. And during this time, COVID restrictions meant that people could not go out into the community. And so Annie delivered a PrEP in a mock PrEP version. So this mock version involved the young adults completing the first 2 steps of PrEP via Zoom. In stage 2, which occurred in 2021, so PrEP was implemented with 4 of our young adult participants who each completed the 5 steps of PrEP in its entirety within their community. PrEP was implemented by a clinician at the Young Adult Complex Disability Service through St Vincent's Hospital, Melbourne, and it should be noted that there were still some COVID restrictions in place throughout this time.
So in stage 1 of the research, after the young adults had done the mock PrEP via Zoom, they had an individual interview and they also participated in a group interview with other young adults who had done the mock PrEP as well. The clinicians who had been involved in implementing the mock PrEP also participated in a group interview. And we invited the support persons of the young adults who helped them with mock PrEP. However, none of them consented to participate due to time constraints.
So within stage 2, there were 3 main ways in which we collected our data. So firstly, we had participant progress and outcome rating scales. So these included a Cobham performance scale and a more study-specific involvement scale, which were both collected twice weekly throughout PrEP. And then we also had the Cobham with satisfaction with performance scale, which was collected at the start and then at the end of each 4-week stage. And these work to form our quantitative or numbered results, which we will talk to in a minute. We then had our study-specific surveys. So there were 2 different surveys, one for the service providers who implemented PrEP, and then one for the nominated support people, as we mentioned earlier. And these surveys were anonymous in nature. And then lastly, in stage 2, we had participant interviews. So these were completed at the end of PrEP and included broader, semi-structured interview questions, which aim to gain additional perspectives and insights regarding their experiences during PrEP. And both of these interviews and surveys work to form our quantitative worded results, which we'll also talk to in a little bit. And within both of these stages, the interviews and focus group participants were asked questions related to if they thought PrEP was acceptable and applicable in an Australian context and for young adults.
So what we found out from all of those interviews and group interviews and the surveys is that participants agreed that PrEP is an acceptable and applicable intervention for young adults living in Australia. There were a few reasons why our participants thought PrEP could work. They included PrEP helps young adults achieve meaningful goals. PrEP helps with finding new ways to do activities. It provides opportunities for meeting new people and trying new things. It can help with increasing confidence, motivation, and independence, which allows participants to step out of their comfort zone and learn new skills which can be used in the future. Participants felt that for PrEP to work, the PrEP program would have to be flexible and adaptable. They explained that young adults have many commitments, including their work, school, and healthcare, and that these commitments, as well as the availability of support persons who can help them with their goals, would need to be considered for them to be able to do PrEP. Another common theme was how will it work? Clinicians agreed that the principles of PrEP aligned with the ethos of their organisation, but they were unsure of how they could integrate it with their current service. They agreed that time requirements, support from senior clinicians, and whether PrEP could be delivered in an interdisciplinary setting would impact whether it worked. They also discussed that PrEP and PrEP-YAR helps them to focus on improving their clients' participation and not just developing new skills. Clinicians felt that focusing on participation helped them to be more client-centered because they were focusing on what was meaningful to the client.
So here we have all about our progress and outcome data, which we collected throughout PrEP. So this was pulled together to create what we call interrupted time series graphs, or ITS graphs, for each of our participants and their goals. So the benefits of using these ITS graphs is that due to the amount of data that's collected before, during, and after intervention, it allows us to grasp a story over time, which is able to provide more depth about a participant's data. So as we can see on the screen now, we have our top graph, which shows the participants' Cobham performance and also Cobham satisfaction with performance data, whilst the bottom graph shows their involvement data. So for this particular participant and their goal here, we can see that their Cobham performance scores in the top graph show a steady increase following the start of intervention, which is that grey shaded area you see there. And these were sustained and even improved upon post-intervention and during follow-up. So the participants' Cobham satisfaction with performance and involvement scale scores both followed a similar trend where they increased during intervention and were held here post-intervention. So the ITS graphs varied greatly from person to person. However, some main overall results that we did find were that improvements in participation outcomes were clear in 4 out of 12 participant goals. So we had 2 further goals which demonstrated ambiguous participation outcomes. Overall, we had each of our participants achieve at least 1 goal. So with their involvement, performance and satisfaction scores being held or improved upon during follow-up where there was no continued intervention from our clinicians. And lastly, we had a significant positive change in COPM satisfaction with performance scores. So this meant a change of 2 or more was recorded across 7 of the 12 participant goals.
So from these results, we can see that working with stakeholders and consumers helped us to identify what adaptations were required to PrEP so that it could work in Australia and with young adults. So the perspectives and lived experience of having young adults involved in our research shaped this PrEP YAR supplement that has been used in this study. And it just demonstrates the large impact that consumers and stakeholders can have on research. In our study, the positive results were relatively low compared to when PrEP has been implemented in other settings. However, this is the first time that PrEP has been implemented in Australia with young adults, and there is a possibility that other factors may have influenced our results. For example, competing lifestyle demands, which meant that individuals had limited time to implement the intervention strategies and also fully participate in their goals. All stakeholders described additional benefits of PrEP. The young adults felt that PrEP helped to increase their confidence in themselves, which allowed them to step out of their comfort zone. And support persons and service providers observed improvements in the participants' independence and motivation, which ultimately led to increased participant autonomy.
So in regards to the feasibility of PrEP, all stakeholders perceived that PrEP was an acceptable intervention as it assisted individuals to reach meaningful goals. It increased participants' confidence, motivation and independence, and it also empowered a meaningful clinical shift. So these findings are similar to some that we found in previous PrEP studies. However, all stakeholders did recognise that to increase PrEP YAR supplements applicability in this setting, there is a need for increased time and flexibility within the intervention timeframes. So an increase to around 6 weeks would likely permit for more intervention to occur, and it would also allow participants more time to engage in their goals and work on the intervention strategies. However, this timeframe should definitely be flexible depending on the individual and their circumstances.
So this study ties in with CP Achieve work for a number of reasons. The PrEP work comes under the empowerment umbrella of planned studies. In this work, we have adapted PrEP for the Australian context and for young adults through authentic consumer and stakeholder engagement. The aim of our work is to facilitate the implementation of PrEP so that we can build supportive environments and promote the participation of those with complex disability. So what's next? In terms of this research and what is happening next, our team are in the process of exploring how we can scale up and expand PrEP for more individuals to be able to use and participate in. And this will take form of a knowledge translation study.
So thank you everybody for your time and listening today. And are there any questions? And we'll open it up for discussion.